On a previous program, we had one of the most powerful interviews we ever had. Captain Guy Gruter's prisoner of war, Vietnam, 5.5 years, tortured. Didn't know what was going on at home, but mentally, his wife did not know what was going on with Captain Guy. So we're going to talk to Sandy, see how she made it through those years. On a previous program, we heard the mind-numbing testimony of Captain Guy Gruter, prisoner of war during Vietnam, shot down twice, captured, spent 5+ years in 6 different prison camps. The most notorious, probably the Hanoi Hilton. Tortured. During that time, his wife, Sandy, was at home, in the home front. Sandy, did you know that Guy was alive?
Well, we were very blessed. The pilot that was shot down with Guy was actually being moved from gun site to gun site, and what happened was young soldiers were taking him from one gun site to another, and they were playing with the survival radio, and they flicked it on. And what happened was the pilots that Guy and Bob had been flying with were up the valley trying to find them. This was the next day after they were shot down in the evening. And Bob said to the young man, he was playing with it, and he said, "Here," he said, "I'll show you how to work it." And he gave the radio to Bob.
And he got the information.
And he got the information out that they were captured, and that he would see his wife after the war. And he said Guy was captured, and he would see his wife after the war. So we were very, very blessed.
What sustained you during the 5+ years that you didn't exactly know what was going on? You heard horror stories.
Well, fortunately, the first few years, I had very small children, and I had to continue on with caring for them, so that kept me very busy. I also was blessed with a wonderful family and wonderful friends who really were there to support me in every instant that I needed. It was very easy to get upset. It was very easy to be depressed.
Who'd you get upset at?
Well, I got upset at the Vietnamese. I got upset at after a while at our government, because we kept trying to get information, and we would get promises and it wouldn't develop. And finally the families, when Jerry Denton blinked torture, the families formulated a group called the Families of POWs and MIAs. And we went to Washington, and we started talking to congressmen and senators, and we started traveling throughout the world. I went to Paris with a group of wives and families to try and talk with the North Vietnamese, and they said first they wouldn't see us, and then we went to Notre Dame, and we prayed for our men, and we lit candles. And lo and behold, the North Vietnamese sent a person to say that they would meet with us. They agreed only to meet with 3 of the wives, but they did. And our questions were, who are you holding, and are you giving them humane treatment? Because they did not allow the Red Cross in, they did not allow anybody to check on what was happening in those prison camps, and it was pretty horrible. So they refused to give us any real answers. But it was Christmas, and there was not much news on Christmas, so we got a lot of publicity, and it really awakened a lot of the world to the fact that these men were not being treated humanely.
You had a crusade, basically, that kind of helped keep you, with your prayers, keep you at least hoping and working, doing what you could do.
That's right. That's right, and that's very important. That's very important. The worst part, I think, of being in a situation like that is you don't feel like you can do anything. You feel helpless. You're totally at the mercy of whatever the government decides to do. both governments.
How did you push out of your mind that your husband might not survive it?
You know, it's funny, I never thought that. I never did. The first night that we got the information that Guy was MIA, missing in action, I actually sat down and wrote a letter, because we wrote every day. And I actually said to him, I said, I feel in my heart that if you were dead, I would know it. And I feel that you're alive. And we're going on with that assumption. And I think you have to do that. You can only live in an unknown world for so long. Then you have to come to, okay, all this information says they made it, or all this information says they didn't. And you have to make a decision, because you can't live in limbo. It's too tearing.
I've often wondered what it would be like to have someone you love dearly come back from the dead. What was it like to see Guy get off that plane, the reunion?
Well, that was, he came into Maxwell Air Force Base, and the generals had a very organized procession. Each POW's wife or family were in a car, and they had a red carpet coming down from the plane. They would get off the plane, salute the flag, salute the generals, shake the generals' hands, and then walk down the carpet to the car, and then an airman would open up the car door, and the POW would get in, and then we'd drive off. And the young man that was driving our car was actually a pilot that Guy had been shot down with the first time. And he had a sports car, and he couldn't take me in the sports car, so he had borrowed the neighbor's car, and the neighbor's car was not working very well. So we were sitting in line, and of course everything is very military, very organized, and Charlie had one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, and so he was working us all the way up, and we get to where Guy gets into the car, and he shuts the door, and Charlie peels out. And it was wonderful. It was so wonderful, because all four of us were laughing hysterically. I mean, it couldn't have been a better, God has a way. He has a way. And so then we went to the tape that you have seen to meet Guy's family and our children. Because when he left, the children were 1 and 2. When he came back, they were 7 and 8. So it was quite a change.
Did you wonder what kind of different man would come back?
Well, I think I expected him to be different. I was different. I had gone from my father telling me what to do to my husband telling me what to do. And then I could do what I wanted. And it was pretty nice.
So when he came back and tried to tell you what to do, okay, there was some headbutting.
Wait. No, it was really true. In fact, after Guy went through the hospital part, his aunt called and said, "You have my beach house for as long as you need." And I really think that was the greatest gift we ever had, because he was different and I was different. And we had to have some time away from the children, away from friends, away from all the media and everything that was going on, to really find out who we were. And I say to every young couple that I meet that have gone through this deployment, back home deployment, that the greatest gift that we can give these young people is time that they can reestablish a relationship. Because Guy came home with, "Oh, I'm out of prison camp, Sandy can take over." And I went, "Phew, Guy's home from prison camp, he can take over." And both of us started laughing, and we said, well, we'll have to work it out together.
Did one of your children a 7 or 8-year-old daughter?
Yes, we have 2 girls.
Then they could take over.
Yeah, well, and they did.
One last question, Sandy. Did he come back a more faithful man?
I think he was always had a faith, but I think his faith was a great deal deeper, as was mine, because it was only by the grace of God that he came home. It was only by the grace of God that I got through those horrible, difficult years. And I think that that's true of all the families. Many of them were not as lucky as I was. They didn't get their man home, and it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking because we were a family. We really were a family. We had united together to fight to get them home.
Sandy Gruters, wife of Captain Guy Gruters, prisoner of war many years, North Vietnam. You've been married how long?
53 years.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.